Okay, think about this for a second. You know that drawer, maybe your kitchen or office, the one that's just overflowing with old charging cables.
Oh yeah, the tech graveyard drawer. I knew it well.
Exactly. Or maybe it's clothes in the back of your closet, you should get rid of.
Yeah.
But, well, you just haven't.
Mm-hmm.
Or even that piece of equipment at work, the one you're still technically responsible for, even though it was replaced ages ago.
Right. It's just sitting there on the books.
It's this universal challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you actually do with all that outdated, no longer useful stuff?
It piles up.
It really does. Well, today we're taking a deep dive into how this seemingly, mundane problem gets massively scaled up for an organization like the U.S. Army.
Monumentally scaled up.
Yeah, we're looking at a brand new, really sweeping policy guidance the Army just issued. It's all about the removal and disposal of what they call legacy organizational clothing and individual equipment. OCIE for short.
OCIU, right. That's the standard gear.
So our mission for this deep dive, using an Army News Service article by Staff Chaff Irrigate Ray Robinson III as our guide, it's to really unpack why this policy is, frankly, much more than just clearing out old boots and uniforms.
It goes way deeper than spring cleaning.
Absolutely. It signals a pretty pivotal shift in Army property accountability. It's a key step in modernizing their logistics and definitely a move towards better efficiency and readiness.
And it hits right down to the individual soldier level, too.
That's the thing. You'll see this isn't just some dry bureaucratic update. It has direct practical implications for every single soldier. And honestly, it signals a pretty significant leap forward for military supply chain management.
Yeah, what's really fascinating here is how that problem, the one that feels so individual, like your junk drawer, becomes this absolutely monumental logistical and administrative burden for an organization the size of the Army.
How so? What was the old way?
Well, historically, soldiers were often held accountable on their property records for these OCIE items long after they became obsolete.
Even if they were worthless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even when the items had basically no economic value, no practical purpose anymore. And this just created unnecessary complications in their records, significant administrative headaches.
So it's kind of like being perpetually audited for, a flip phone you haven't seen in 15 years, but you're still technically on the hook for it?
That's a pretty good analogy, yeah. It sounds incredibly frustrating, and it was.
I bet. So this new directive, it comes from the Deputy Chief of Staff for Logistics, the G4, right? That's the Army's top logistics office.
That's correct. They're the ones driving this. The directive aims to streamline this whole end-of-life process for aging OCIE.
And how does this sort of smaller policy piece fit into the Army's bigger picture? Their strategic goals?
Oh, it's definitely a core piece of a much broader Army push. They're really focused on modernizing logistics right now, cutting down on supply chain waste, and ultimately boosting operational readiness. There's a quote in the article from John Cisney. He's the OCIE policy lead for the G4, and he puts it really well. He says, this guidance provides clarity and consistency across the Army.
Right.
We are reducing the administrative burden and ensuring soldiers and units aren't held responsible for items that no longer serve a purpose.
So it frees people up.
Precisely. It's not just about cleaning out warehouses. It's about freeing up soldiers, freeing up their units so they can focus on their main missions instead of wrestling with, outdated paperwork for useless gear. It's a step towards trusting the individual soldier more, giving them a bit more autonomy.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we need to understand what items we're actually talking about. What is OCIE specifically, and what's now on the chopping block?
Right. So OCIE, again, is organizational clothing and individual equipment. Basically, the essential gear soldiers get issued.
Like uniforms, boots.
Exactly. And the article gives some specific examples of what's being retired now. Things like enhanced small arms plates. The photo caption mentioned those. Also those old black cold weather boots.
I think I remember those.
Yeah, silk weight base layer garments, various older patterns of woodland or desert camouflage uniforms. Those are going.
Okay, the older camo pattern.
And also some more sensitive items like ballistic vests and other protective equipment are part of this too.
Gotcha. And the policy, it creates two new main categories for dealing with all this stuff. OCI dispose and OCI return. Makes sense.
Right.
Let's tackle OCI dispose first. Sounds like soldiers can just, well, dispose of it.
Pretty much, yeah.
But I'm guessing there's a catch. There has to be, right?
You're absolutely right. There is a crucial catch. So the OCI dispose category, it covers those lower value items we just mentioned.
Like the boots, the base layers, the old camo.
Exactly. Soldiers are now authorized to basically get rid of these specific items themselves at their own discretion.
Okay, that's a big change. But the catch...
The catch is the really clever safeguard here. The directive is very clear. All unit identifiers have to be removed or destroyed before disposal.
So things like patches, name tapes.
Yeah.
What about those little IR tabs?
Yep, those too. Infrared tabs, rank insignia, anything that identifies the unit or the soldier. All must go.
So you can clear out your old camo trousers, finally, but you absolutely cannot just drop them off at Goodwill with your unit patch still lazing on the pocket.
Precisely. And this step is critical for a couple of big reasons. First, obviously, operational security. You don't want identifiable military gear floating around out there.
Right, falling into the wrong hands.
Or being misused somehow. And second, it's about upholding Army branding and identity standards. They don't want misrepresented gear out there.
Makes sense.
But what this policy really shows is, I think, a significant cultural shift. The Army is essentially decentralizing the disposal for these low-risk items. They're trusting individual soldiers with a responsibility that used to be very, very centralized.
That's interesting. It's flexibility, but with guardrails.
Exactly. A really smart balance, I think, between empowering the soldier and maintaining those vital security protocols.
Okay, so that's OCIE dispose for the everyday lower value stuff. What about the more sensitive items, the body armor, things like that? That's where OCI return comes in, I take it.
Precisely. The OCI return category is specifically for that more sensitive protective gear. Think ballistic vests, other protective equipment.
And these can't just be disposed of.
Absolutely not. Unlike the dispose items, these must be turned back in for proper demilitarization.
Neil, right. Making sure it's truly unusable.
Exactly. You can't just toss a ballistic vest in a dumpster. It needs to be rendered completely useless and properly accounted for through official channels.
So how does that work for a soldier? How do they actually turn this stuff in? Especially if maybe they're, not stationed near a major base.
Good question. The primary method is turning these items in at a central issue facility, a CIF.
Okay, the CIF, that's like the Army's main equipment supply and return hub on post.
That's right. But they've thought about soldiers who aren't near one. For those who don't have easy access to a local CIF, the Army also provides a direct ordering return system.
So they can mail it back.
Essentially, yes. There's a system for that. And let me get the name right. The U.S. Army Tank, Automotive, and Armaments Command Central Management Office.
That's a mouthful.
It is, but they're the ones providing really detailed instructions to all the CIFs on exactly how to collect and process these returns correctly.
So it's a very controlled process.
Very controlled. And it really highlights how critically important secure disposal is for equipment that, frankly, could pose a real security risk if it wasn't handled and demilitarized properly.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, and speaking of CIFs, the article kind of hints at an even bigger evolution happening with accountability. One that involves the CIFs but goes beyond them. Something about automation, a system called SEAM.
Yes, SEAM. That's a big part of the modernization picture here.
So how do CIFs handle these turn-ins or record removals right now? And what's SEAM going to change?
Okay, so currently, CIFs are authorized to remove these low-value, now disposable items from a soldier's property book during pretty much any interaction. Like, if a soldier goes in for something else, they can clear off the old stuff.
But it's manual.
Mostly, yes. It's largely a manual process right now. It requires coordination, back and forth with the unit supply personnel to make sure the documentation is all correct. It can be pretty labor-intensive, honestly, and sometimes a bit of a bottleneck.
I can imagine.
But the really exciting part is this new system the Army's rolling out, supposedly in the coming months, the Soldier Equipment and Asset Management System, or SEAM.
SEAM.
Yep.
Okay. And this is going to automate a lot of that manual work. What's the real, game changer with SEAM?
Automation is definitely a huge piece of it. SEAM is designed to introduce fully automated inventory tracking and record management across the board. So this will massively reduce the reliance on those manual CIF interactions for reflecting this new end-of-life OCI policy. It should, in theory, automate the removal of these obsolete items from a soldier's record much more seamlessly.
Without them necessarily having to physically go to the CIF or do a bunch of paperwork?
That's the goal. But I think the true power of SEAM isn't just the automation, as helpful as that is, it's the data.
Ah, the data aspect.
Yeah, a system like this could unlock really powerful predictive analytics for Army logistics. Imagine being able to anticipate equipment needs based on real-time data, track wear and tear trends across the force, proactively manage supply chains, things that were incredibly difficult, almost impossible before with manual systems.
That sounds like a massive leap, truly moving towards a digitally integrated, maybe even smarter supply system.
Exactly. It's a prime example of the Army's commitment to modernizing its logistics backbone and boosting overall efficiency.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What does all this really mean? Our deep dive into this new Army OCIE disposal policy, it really shows, I think, a pretty sophisticated, multifaceted approach to modernization.
Definitely more than just tidying up.
Right, it's not just about clearing out old gear, it's clearly a strategic move. Reducing administrative burdens on soldiers, which is huge. It really highlights how even these seemingly small policy tweaks can ripple outwards and signify a really significant organizational shift.
And it's all part of that sweeping modernization effort the article mentions, making sure accountability and modernization really do move forward hand in hand. But stepping back, this whole thing raises a bigger question, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, if an organization as massive, as complex as the U.S. Army finds it necessary to completely overhaul its system for managing something as fundamental as individual equipment, what does that tell us?
That change is constant, maybe.
That, and maybe it highlights the continuous need for every organization, heck, even our own personal systems, right back to that junk drawer to constantly adapt, streamline, and modernize just to stay effective and efficient, especially in a world that changes so fast.
That's a really interesting point. How could we apply these same principles? Accountability, efficient end-of-life processes in our own lives or workplaces.
Yeah, how do you decide when something's truly obsolete and how do you dispose of it responsibly and efficiently, whether it's data, equipment, or just clutter?
Definitely something to think about. Something for you to mull over until our next deep dive.